Welcome to Freaky Friday, where we dare to talk about taboo topics like fetish, bondage, sex, vibrators, and more. This isn't your dad's Friday night programming, but your mom loves it. Welcome to Freaky Friday, hosted by Mr. Anderson, who is the unboxable, uncanny advocating creator known as the Indie Comics Devil, who will tempt you with his devilish tales of fetish, monsters, and more. Also the giver of free hugs and spends. Also hosted by content creator Meredith Loughran. You never know what's lurking inside of her head. She is also a host of many amazing programs live through Geek Insider. Today, everyone watching this program will get virtual free hugs and spends. It's time to get on with the show. Welcome to Freaky Friday. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. Produced by Silent Partner. Song name, Kaiba. Warning and disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this live feed are those of the guests, speakers, and or hosts, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs, official policies, ethics, or positions of the content providers, advertisers, additional hosts, and or guests, hosting sites, groups, or entities attached to this programming. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Welcome to the Compendium of Dread, an anthology of dark fiction.
I just thought it'd be cool to have that. Just roll to see what you all mean, what I mean when I'm talking about what's in Meredith's mind. So you all think, yeah, I know you all think she's sweet and she'll help anyone, but I've read her work. It's not that simple, guys. I'm coming from you from a disclosed location. Can't tell you where. But we're going to go around the room, introduce everybody. So we'll start up here with Nita. Nita, what's going on?
My name is Nita Lanning. You can find me on Facebook. I have some blogs on wildoneforever.com, and I also have an erotica comic coming out in the near future and working on some scripts. I'm out.
Meredith is with us via phone. She's having some power issues in Florida.
Yeah. The electricity just popped off really quickly, but I am Meredith Loughran. I am the associate editor over at Geek Insider, as well as the executive producer of the Geek Insider podcast. The intro that you saw was the Compendium of Dread, which finished up on its Kickstarter, and I am looking forward to finishing up some stories there, which are going to be some brand new stories, which will be in the book. And glad to be here. I've got my black lipstick on. I am ready for this evening.
All right, Marvi, tell them who you are.
Hi, I'm Marvi. I'm the creator of the Sin Killer, and I'm also the creator of Marvi.studios, and that's it. I'm doing my first comic, and it's an horror comic, and I also did last year erotica horror story for a comic.
All right, so tonight's topic, for those who didn't know and didn't read the preview and are just showing up, we're talking about writing about sexuality versus selling sex with words. This is not going to reflect covers, because that whole cover debate is something that it's obvious when someone's using sexuality the wrong way. Actually, it's really obvious. The way a woman is posed, it's usually unnatural. It's deliberately depicting something, or it's over-sexual in nature. That's easy to see with our eyes. You can argue about its merits, but when it comes to words, it's a little more difficult, isn't it, guys? Because you have to go to a book to understand what's going on. Was Marvi trying to say something?
Mute it, Meredith.
Oh.
I'm having problems.
Trying to do this from my phone. Yeah, Rob, can you repeat a little bit of that, because I missed some of it?
Oh, I was saying, we all know when covers step over the line and just start being about sex. But with writing, it's not that simple. The line between the two is razor thin at times. And it really is more about word choice and all that. So I wanted to go over that. the differences of it, like what is exploitation and just selling sex. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. However, a lot of people try to act like they're not doing that and try to fit into our, oh, no, this isn't that, but it's totally that. So how, I guess the starting point is like, how do you figure out when you're crossing the line as a writer?
I think for me personally, I think you have to draw the line of what are you writing. The differentiation between like a sweet romance compared to an erotica compared to straight up porn. I mean, there is a difference. It depends on what your market is, how explicit it is when you're talking about body parts and things. The actual, like the act itself, how far does it go? And then, and then it just broadens out into like, what is their story? What is their story arc? How are you conveying that? Whose point of view are you writing in? So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is.
Oh, we lost her.
Yeah.
Nita, what about you?
For me, I prefer sticking within the erotica realm. I'm not. Romance is okay too, but I like the romance that works up a little bit more. It's all in the wording and not writing out the raunchy, and I like to work up, to build up the perspective, to be inside the minds of the people I'm writing. And I want whoever's reading that to want what's coming for that person. So yeah, there is a line. It's blurry, but it's there.
And Murphy, what about you? I didn't realize that you wrote an erotica.
I wrote The Witch. It's kind of an erotic horror detective story, and I think when it comes to the sex part of the story, I wanted to build up the moment, not going straight forward to the sex scene. Why that happened? You have it has a whole story, a build up to that moment. So, and when I'm telling that before that moment, the build up is always with the choose of words. I have to choose the right words and the right moment to put those words there, because it's all about how you tell the story. You can't say everything just explicit. You can put anything explicit, because if you do that, you lost everything that you were working for to get to that moment. So I think the choose of words is also, and be kind of polite too in the choose of words. I think I'm explaining myself. My English sometimes is a little rusty.
You're fine. You did perfect.
It gets complicated because I want the sex in there.
For me, oh, go ahead, Nita.
No, I'm just saying it's complicated because I enjoy the workup. I like the buildup, and I want the sex in there. But the sex is the most difficult part. Like the workup for me is easy because I just get inside my own head and how I'd want to hear it and how I'd want it to play out. But wording the act becomes complicated because that line is. It's a little blurry between romance and erotica, and it's a little blurry between erotica and porn. And I try to stay within that middle section.
See, for me, it's a little different. All my stories are around the characters.
Right.
So it's the characters' interactions. It's how the characters will react to it. And I build characters to be very human in my mind, to the point of conversations.
Right.
So, I just always look at it like that, like the human interaction. And would someone be wanting to be in this situation? How would they feel, knowing all the experiences I've had? Not to say I'm a slut or anything that slept with 100 people. What I mean is just the sexuality is so intuitive. And I think writers try really hard to sell something that's very obvious to most of us. The simplest hints probably go a lot further than the most explicit stuff.
Right.
You know, explicit, I mean, there's a billion-dollar porn industry, so there's people out there who want it. But on the same breath, there's also people who want to just have something they can read and not feel like they have to take a shower right after reading it because it was full of things that made them uncomfortable. So there's a line, you know, and there's words. I remember a big argument when I first wrote the book. An editor said I shouldn't say that she felt wet and instead moist, and I hated that. And I remember when I went back and did the editing again with a different editor, I was like, I want to change that. I hate moist. And he was like, no, I agree with you. That sounds off. But it was a weird thing because wet sounds dirty, but that was the right moment. It was a dirty moment.
Right.
Sometimes it's okay to be dirty. And you have to kind of know the line. Like Christina Aguilera is a perfect example. There was a woman who was told that she was like this dirty girl, so she embraced it, ran towards it, and then scared a kid at an airport and kind of had to realize, hey, there's a line, and I have to learn sensuality and sexuality. And I think the older you get, the more you start to understand it. You see desperate people trying to do desperate things at time, but porn is not how sex really happens. Anyone who's ever had a sex act recorded and watched it, what they did, they realize that they do not look like porn stars and it does not look the same way. Most of what's done in porn, kids, you're not going to do at home and it's never going to look that way. No. So you have to stop thinking porn and you have to kind of, I hate to say it this way, but you intuitively know how to have sex. It's the one thing you were born knowing how to do. The well part, as most women will tell you, is the thing that you have to learn. But most people know how to just have sex. And I think when it comes to writing, not enough people talk about, like Nita was touching on this, the desire to get into the moment. 90% of it's that buildup. So no matter what happens next, it's an explosion. You know, all you have to write is like, and then I felt him just enter me. And there's
and that's it.
But most writers are like, his throbbing cock, like was the Hulk. And it was like ripping through my vagina wall. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Like nobody talks like that. Nobody really feels like that. But you know, with when it comes to porn, it's dirty and it's explicit and really there like you can write for it and that's fine, but you're basically going from sex scene to sex scene. Like how explicit can we be? And really very little story behind it. Right. You know, it is what it is. And some people are okay with that. I can be okay with that. But
if you call it what it is,
if you call it what it is, but if it is erotica, there's, you know, not only is there's things that are suggestive, but very sexy, alluring, and there's that pleasure factor that goes in with that, you know. So you want to make sure that that's involved, and then there is a bit of a story arc, you know, but it is mostly orbiting around sex. And then you have your romance, which is more story with, you know, like the really sexy scenes. They can be just as explicit, but that's not what your story is about. That's not the main focus, you know? And so when you're saying, hey, I want porn, I want erotica, or I want romance, totally different. I mean, it's kind of orbiting around the same thing by the fact that it's sex, but it's like, where are you in your head when you're writing this and what you want to convey to your readers?
I want the readers in the head of my characters. I want them to, with porn, it's about self-gratification. Usually somebody who's getting porn is looking to feel good for themselves. With the stuff I write, I want you to want it for my character. Mm-hmm. Like to be in their mind, to see what they're seeing and to then want it for them.
Right. And then hop on your significant other because
and if that makes you a little hot, then that's awesome. Great.
Exactly.
Then I've done my job.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Marvy.
I try to use the senses, you know, the smell, the touch, the look, everything about the senses before getting into it. You know, the man looking at her lips, at her eyes, at her hair, at her shoulder, you know, always doing some kind of trajectory and using that kind of path to go where I want to go. So the build-up that we have, that we talked about. So yeah, that's. I think we should go something like that too.
I agree with Rob. The build-up is everything.
And I do think that, and I'll say it, most male writers don't understand that. I've written the difference between a male and a female writer, and 90% of it is even the thought going into it. They look at it for the sexual act. They want to talk about, even when a man writes a romance novel, you could tell he fixates on the physical alone. And like Marv was saying, doesn't bring in the other senses. The lighting in the room, the sounds around him, even the breathing. Most people just said, oh, she was moaning. That's it? Just moaning, huh? Screaming. Okay. That's all you got? It doesn't paint a picture. And it's just one of those things where I'm just going to slap on a coat of like she's begging on her knees and like things get shot in her face and, oh yeah, we're having fun now. And if you really read half the things that people write, it's sloppy. I feel bad for their partners.
It's lazy.
I think you make a really good point, Rob. It's like, is it good for the partner? That's something that should be considered when we're writing the sexy stuff. And it's, I think one of the struggles also, and I don't know, I'm not really speaking for comic books, but I'm speaking for prose when you're writing, and I don't mean this suggestive, and I don't take it dirty, but head hopping, okay? and I mean that by point of view, all right? Whose point of view are you in?
Right.
Stay there when you're in the moment. You can't have like one person who's kind of doing the act, and then in the next moment, in the next sentence, while you're trying to read this, is be in somebody else's head, and reacting to it. It's like when you're writing, let's just say you're writing in the man's point of view, all right, and he's having sex and he's feeling her curves and everything like that. He has to basically use his senses to observe what it is that she's going through. Are her eyes dilated? Are her nipples tight? Is she squirming? Is she moaning? All of those different things that he's feeling through her. He's observing her, and you have to be careful when you're writing that to remember whose head you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets complicated sometimes.
And sometimes we don't know who is reading the book, if it's a male or a female. So
that's an interesting question. As a writer, I don't care. I write it for both sexes the same way. Do you guys have a different approach if you think your audience is more one way than the other?
No.
I just wrote a story. I didn't thought about it. But
because I've been surprised that I have the bigger fan base with females than males. And that has to do, a lot of people say that I wrote her sounding like an actual female. Like a lot of people don't even believe that it's not a real person, that I'm just taking these stories from. And I think that's what matters. Grounded characters always matter more. Falling for the character, even if it's not in a sexual way, but like you just want to be on the journey with them. That's so important. And my books go into, of course, sexuality with kink too, where it's not just sex, but there are other intimate things that can go on. You have to build a world. And that's not to say that you have to be in love to have sex. We're all adults in the room. We all know that doesn't necessarily happen. But there has to be that lingering desire, that want, that need. And I think a lot of times comics can do, the artists generally get it really well, but the dialogue that goes with it, you can tell when a writer is uncomfortable. You can tell when a writer thinks that something's going to sound good and they've never tested it with a real human being. You can tell. Right. This is the thing they want to say when they're having sex and not trying it with the woman. And I don't know. I don't see a difference in who I plan for when it's who's going to read it. I never even considered that. That's a good point. I don't think I'll ever consider it, but it is something worthy of mentioning. different audiences. Because if you get a guy who's writing for other guys who are very like porn driven, like OnlyFans, if you made an OnlyFans comic book, it would probably be a dirtier comic. And I've seen underground comics, don't get me wrong. I've read a couple. Every bondage underground comic is always like some tentacled object is holding it and sticking tentacles, and it's part robotic and stuff. And it is to the umpteenth. It is like, oh my God. And for those watching, pornography's biggest field right now is rape porn, like the fantasy rape and subjugation of women in a sexual manner in videos. And I do not believe that's what people really want. I think there's a small amount that pay money for that, and that's why the industry went that way. Because when you're an industry based on profits alone, I mean, they're not good Samaritans, you know. Nothing wrong with it, but you know, I do think that you see that, especially in the last decade, for pay products are a little more violent. And as a creator, do you worry about that kind of stepping over lines, portraying any character, like even with rape fantasy? Do you worry about writing stories like that?
So,
I think it depends on whether or not it is part of the story. If it's part of the story arc and you're telling, and it's kind of like a retelling of an event, you know, because in one of my short stories in the flash fiction piece that I did for the Compendium of Dread is it's kind of a fantasy piece because it's mermaid, but you know, there's a rape scene, but that event is what kind of turned her into this dark being who does an evil thing at the end. You know, and there in a way, it's as evil as it is with what happens, it's almost like a redemption story for her, you know? So but now if it's just rape for the sake of rape, because that's what gets your rocks off, I don't know. It's not something that I would personally read or write, though I have seen, I have a lot of author friends, and a couple of them are guys, and they're like, well, let me write this erotica. And, you know, and they send it over to me, and it's basically rape porn. And I'm like, what do you think is erotic about this? Like, why do you think that's hot? You know? Is it something that she's enjoying? Is it something that she's fantasizing about, you know, and it's coming to fruition or something, you know? So I think you have to really understand what the story is, and where your characters are coming from, what their story, where their story arc is. And this is not an easy topic to really talk about.
When you write the rape, though, that has purpose in your storyline, how do you write that? You're not going to sit there and overly sexualize it and freaking just, you know, go into the details of where someone who was into the freaking rape fantasy or whatever could be getting their rocks off in your story, because that's not your goal. That's not what you're going for.
Right.
And so that's different.
And I'm kind of interested in hearing, because Daphne is in the side room here, consensual non-consent. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you guys? Consensual non-consent.
That to me means rape fantasy. That's something that's usually agreed upon ahead of time when it's actually played out.
Right. And Rob, you're all about, you know, you communicate those things. You have I call it a workbook, but you have a survey that talks about those things, those hard no's, and, you know, what is a maybe and what's a hard no.
What was the question? Sorry.
Well, your interpretation of like consensual non-consent.
I mean, remember, I'm I want to say society. It's really not a society. We're in a culture where we're implying someone implementing pain onto a person. You know, there is that dynamic of one person being in charge and overpowering the other one, and pretty much doing whatever they want and having that balance. If you really think about it, most of BDSM is generally speaking consensual, non-consensual stuff, because you don't stop every second to ask, is this going to be okay? But you do. You take the time beforehand. I won't do a rape fantasy. I've already told people. I've had someone request me to slap him in the face, and I couldn't do it. It was like, stop. I can't have that violent side. And and I'm not the most over the top. Everyone's kink is their own kink. And you try things with people and partners, but I could never do a rape fantasy. I couldn't bring it to myself to it. That doesn't mean I don't understand people wanting it. I had a girlfriend who was like, I wish you would just, do whatever you wanted to me every so often without my consent. And I'm like, see, you say that, but then the one time you get it wrong, it really affects the relationship. We'd have to have a relationship where I knew that. And at the time, she was struggling with her sexuality. And I don't want to get too much into it, but I knew that she was uncomfortable with things. And the worst thing you could do is that. Fantasies are always great until you live them out. And when you try to, and that was the whole purpose of Barbara Unleashed. She's living out this fantasy on full blast until she realizes how far down the rabbit hole she's gotten. And the uncomfortableness comes in because she realizes that there's no stopping what's begun. It's avalanching. It's just coming at her so quickly. And I remember writing that book. I was terrified to do something that would trigger someone emotionally when they read it in a way where it didn't feel lethargic and like it was someone else has experienced this and I feel okay because they get it. And I'm so happy that I've had people cry in my arms at my table because they're so proud that there's someone out there trying to do what I do and have these honest conversations. The whole second book is about abuse. It's a hard line. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. 50 Shades of Grey, perfect example. Oh, my wife said to spank her. So what do? They hit her as hard as you can. They don't understand it. There's a whole methodology. You have to give and take. Sexuality should be fun. In America, we rush to the finish line. The best part of being when we were younger was playing with each other, right? Exploring each other. And as we get older, we get callous and we get to the point where we lose that magic of understanding that we're sharing these opportunities with each other. Maybe that's why I write the stories the way I do. I always look at it like a kid. Like those, to me, the relationships when you first, I don't, for the record, just because it's on topic, I can't sleep with someone on a one-night stand. I'm demisexual. I need to be connected to the person emotionally to be able to have sex with the person. So that might help my writing, believe it or not, because I have that built into me. And to me, I have a fetish, which means the fetish has to play out. Even if we're not having sex using the fetish, I have to know the person I'm with is into it because that's a turn on to me. So there's a lot of little picadillos that we don't look at. We don't take serious. We rush into these relationships. We demand people to do it our way. We don't take the time to really get to know our partners. And I think you're seeing that as a reflection within modern media now. 50 Shades of Grey, just it's sloppy sexuality. It's over the top. It's I want you to buy my book. It's not patient. It's not story driven,
Well, I think a lot of that too is just capitalizing on the fact that it's sex, and we know that sex sells. Period. So whether you're writing it bad or portraying it terribly or whatever, it's going to bring in the dollars. And I think people just kind of want to jump on that opportunity and cash in really quickly, whether it's done well or not. For me, being around prose writers, whether it's romance or whether it's erotica and stuff, I've met several authors, and some of the ones who have the most racy stuff is like, little old ladies who, maybe they had that life, or maybe their life is just so vanilla now that they, that their mind just goes wild with stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to feel sexy, like that, so sexy that your partner is just going to put you up against the wall and grab your hair and just have his way with you. And it's like, oh yeah, where's that passion? But that's it. It's that passion that's there that needs to be conveyed, and not so much the sex act itself, but to what Rob was saying, that play, it's where did the play go? Especially when you've been in, especially if you've been in maybe a long-term relationship or something like that. It's like, all right, well, how do we kick this up a notch?
You just start talking, you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I also do want to point out, I think, and I'm not saying it was wrong, but I think the Me Too movement hurt communication between men and women when it comes to dating, not a relationship. This is not an excuse. If you're married, you should be past this point. Right. But new relationships, I know a lot of men who are very uncomfortable with sexuality right now. We don't have a clear path on what's appropriate anymore. We really don't. It
varies from woman to woman too.
Yeah, and we are trying to figure it out to respect someone. I mean, we were teenagers. The girls had all the power. It was yes, no, yes, no. They played that game, and it turns out that game might have led to miscommunication. So we're trying to get to a culture of consent, trying to figure out how flirting looks in that without offending someone. And we definitely have to step away from this being sensitive point we are. The too much sensitivity is destroying relationships on every level, sexual, friendship, all that. So I think you're going to see a swing back the other way, and you're going to see a little dirty jokes and a little innuendos coming back. George Carlin was right. You can't live a clean life. Not even a priest can do it. Well, why would you expect any of us to be able to live a clean life, And it's just the reality. We all have to give each other the space, and you have to talk to people about their sexuality. What do you want? Don't be afraid to ask your partner what their fantasy is. Just hope that you're in it. And if you're in it, be happy. And if you're not, hold the video camera, let them get it out of their system. Have fun. That's what it is. A lot of people, when it comes to sex, they don't have fun with it, especially writing it. They're not exploring it. Like you guys are saying, it's rushing into it. Meredith, you want to go through some of the questions and pick the winners?
Let me see. Let me scroll through
questions
here.
And comments. I mean, from our
questions and comments. Okay, so Mike James Bengston here. I think when the story calls for sex, it works better than when the title almost guaranteed sex. Yeah, that speaks to being suggestive. Instead of just telling me what's happening, show me.
Right.
Tease me a little bit. Let's play, that kind of thing. Rick Kurtz, what is more important to build up or the moment itself?
Build up.
Even for men.
Yeah.
A lot of people get this wrong, and I'm not going to say what show it was on, but I know that there was a show where men were portrayed as these simpletons that don't have the sexuality awareness that we really do as men. The difference between men and women, and this is it for those who don't know, I'm going to be honest with you. For women, it is way more thought-based. It is the idea. It is the presence. It is they're in their own mind. They're feeling it. They're processing it. For men, it's very visual. So that's what women don't understand. And men and women don't understand a lot when it comes to the different sexes. By the time men want to have sex, they've wanted to have it for a very long time. They've seen the woman. They've seen how she's been moving. They're just at that point. A woman needs a little more time. That's why I suggest remote vibrators. They're wonderful. They're foreplay in the car. And they're a lot of fun in public.
Ooh, what was that? Oh, no, just my phone. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys.
Excuse me.
Driving back from the club can be a lot more fun when you get to do something too. Because guys are visual. It's just the truth. Men are always going to be a lot more visual of a being. It doesn't mean we're stupid or we don't have the aspect. There are a lot of men who just also are uncomfortable. We haven't empowered men to talk about their sexuality enough. And that's something I do want to change. Because we tell men to be so many things, but we don't tell them to just be okay with themselves and to be happy and to express themselves enough. And that's what we have to do. We have to allow men to express themselves more. You
Well,
know?
and I want to ask Marvi, is it the buildup or is it the moment itself? And then to piggyback off of that, is it different in Portugal or Europe or, like across the pond? Because American psyche is a little bit different from everybody else.
Yeah, we have a totally different kind of mind. For instance, we can put nipples in our comics all the time. I have comics from the 70s and 80s. Everything is explicit when it comes to erotica. There's nothing that we can't show. And it's incredible from this side looking to the United States and see how we are so different in so many ways, especially when it comes to I think it's I don't know if I'm saying a bad thing, but I think men are being persecuted in the United States for some reason.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we don't see this in that kind of stuff in Europe, especially where I live in Portugal. We just don't. I spoke to buddies of mine, and we don't understand how it was possible something like that can happen in the United States or any country. It's weird in the side of the pond. It's very weird. Weird.
I have to say, and I have 3 boys. All right. So, and I have, Rob and I were talking about this where, he said that I'm in the club where I got married twice. I went back and did it again. Yeah. I like marriage so much. I did it twice. Okay. So I'm sticking with that. But, what I worry about my boys. I worry about my boys because we're in a culture right now where they're vilified for opening a door. And I'm like, bitch, don't ruin it for me. If I have an armful of groceries, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, open the fucking door for me,
Amen.
And I'm going to say thank you for it. I mean, there's some grace that has disappeared.
But that also comes down to a man should be opening door for another man as well.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. But when I have older guy friends who are so confused because they got yelled at for opening the door, for being polite. And it wasn't like, hey, I'm opening the door. You want to fall into bed with me? No. It's just being polite. And so there's that too. And that's got to change.
I am terrified for my sons.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad. And I just wonder how far of, that snowball effect where it's that little bit and then it rolls down the hill and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then like at the end of the, you're at the bottom of the hill and you're going, what the fuck happened here? Right? It's like, what do I do? I don't know what's okay and what's not okay anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
And there are some shows that on TV, some TV shows that make that point too. Men are bad. There are some TV shows that do that. There are some movies that do that. And I'm here and I'm watching those episodes. There are a couple of series that I stopped watching because it's ridiculous what they are doing. And I just look at the TV and stay speechless because why? I don't understand that. Something that I don't understand.
Well, in fairness to the subject, American has struggled with sexuality for decades now. We are not as open as the European culture has been with sexuality, and I think that's dealt with a lot of. We struggle. We don't understand. Too many women are sexually mishandled. There's too many men out there who have done too many bad things. You can't ignore that in America. And there is this, and I stress this a lot, being a man who's come up and been attracted to the opposite sex, which is female. Females play games, the yes/no game. It's very confusing. This causes a problem. I was lucky enough to understand consent was very important. And this has actually kept me very safe in my life. So when the consent thing came up, it was fine. It was more the you have to say things a certain way. You can't say certain things. Like I get a dirty mouth and it works for me when it comes to flirting and shit. But now I don't know how to flirt. Like I grew up in the 90s. we just hung out. We were cool and we were chill. Nowadays, like, people all want to play games. I said this to a friend the other day. All these women want the guy who walks up and knows how to play a game, and then they wonder why they keep getting screwed over. It's because you want the person who's going to screw you and leave you. Yep. Instead of the dude who's nervous to come up and talk to you. And I even realized this the other day of myself. I'm like, why don't girls come and flirt with me more? Because I hear from people, oh, that girl likes you. Oh, this one likes you. And you hear later from your friends, I guess it's their way of trying to get to me. And I realized, wait a minute, do I want a girl who's really good at flirting? Because then on the opposite thing, if she's doing it with me, she's doing it with every other dude. So there should be a little bit of discomfort. And we have to get to the point where we understand the discomfort's okay. Breaking the ice is okay. We shouldn't be playing mind games with each other. No. If you're not ready to sexually move on, you should say our relationship's not there right now. And both parties should be mature. That's what we have to do. I went back and watched Cheers, of all shows. I grew up watching Cheers as a kid. Oh, yeah. I can't watch it anymore. It is cringeworthy. The main character lies to have sex. They applaud him having sex. It is like, oh, and it's not even like he's like good at like talking about the things he does, and he doesn't talk about how he's open with the women. There's not this honest back and forth. No, he's a scumbag. And I grew up liking Sam Malone, and I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh shit, what the fuck? What was I raised on? Luckily, I watched Frasier too, so I worked it out with Frasier, and I'm okay now.
But that's not just men, though. There are women who do the same thing. Oh, yeah. And I don't think that they are heralded or, hey, another notch in the bedpost or anything like that. They get vilified. But there are women who are just as bad and just as, I want to say, predatory in a way. And who knows the motivations behind that? I mean, again, that speaks to motivation. It speaks to psyche, whatever. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But Mike James says, sex goes different ways. The courtship and build up sometimes, but also the bar type hookup. Daphne Lynch says, good written erotica has just as good as build up as actual sex. Let's not forget the foreplay in either one. Exactly. That is something that you want to build up to it. It's like you when you're reading those words, you want to feel it, and you're like, yeah, it's like I'm in the mood. I'm going to put this book down and go, say hello to my friend, whatever that might be. Daphne also says, I've been experimenting with erotic short stories based in my comic universe, and it's not as easy as people like to assume in general with the genre. No, it's definitely not easy. Anybody who has tried writing it, I do like writing sex scenes. It's almost like to the point, it's like, okay, how many sex scenes am I going to have in my book? I'm a total pantser when it comes to writing for the most part, but I'm just like, I can plan around this. Is it porn? No, there is a story arc. It's just that stuff's boring. Let's get to the sex, right? I don't know. That's how I am sometimes. It's the way my brain works. Let's see. We're scrolling. Sorry about the dead air here. Daphne also says, the longer I try to write these stories, the more I understand the popularity of romance novels. Right. Yeah. I tend to switch between visuals and the written word. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but sometimes the 1,000 words is more satisfying. Yes. Mm-hmm. You know why? For me, a lot of times it's when you're reading it, as a consumer of these types of products, my imagination can go wild with your words. So I'm not if it was a visual novel or something, I'm seeing somebody else's vision. Whereas a lot of times, if I want to try and get in the mood, I am setting my own stage. I might have my beverage. I might have the candle lit. I'm having those sensory things that I'm surrounding myself with, but then I let my imagination go. It's like, okay, who is this guy to me? What does he look like? What does he, what does he look like? What does he feel like? And all those things. So that those words that I'm reading, it just feeds the imagination.
Yeah.
Nita, were you saying something?
That's pretty much going back to what Rob said earlier about men being, visual and women, like the thought, because the words, I can get far more turned on reading something than looking at someone else's images.
Yeah.
I've got a question. When you write a story, are you in the character shoes, or are you watching, like if you are watching a movie? Because when I write, I'm like sitting on my couch and watching all the scenes happening.
Yes.
That's it. Yes, just yes.
I mean, it really depends. It depends on whether or not, again, if you are in somebody's specific point of view, what are they experiencing? You are expressing their story through words, through their eyes, through what they feel, all of those different senses that you're trying to touch. And it's really hard to sometimes stay in that. Whereas if it's more of a narrative, for me personally, I don't like to do narratives so much, because then I feel like I'm just bonking you on the head with this information,
dialogue.
Whereas instead of being like immersed into this world, like you become this person, you are feeling what they're feeling. So, I mean, that's the difference for me. I don't know about really anybody else though.
No, I like the dialogue, like the communication, the back and forth, the work up between the two people, or however many people.
Yeah. I mean, and why not? I mean, I wrote one where they went to a swing club.
Yes, you did.
And it was one of those things where you just let your imagination go wild and stuff. It's like, what could happen? And it kind of speaks to like what Rob was saying, as far as being having consent and understanding what the rules are as far as that's concerned. Rick, writing my first was really easy, but the hardest part was when my mother-in-law read it. And I wanted to die. I was mortified at first. And then she asked me when the next one was coming out. So I felt a little bit better. So it wasn't that hard. Marvy, how about you? You wrote.
I wrote.
What was it like for your first erotic?
It wasn't difficult, because we all have our experiences, and I mix it with horror. So there's a sex scene, and then there's a decapitation, and she's holding his head between her breasts. So I always go to that round. So, but it was easy because of that. I love horror, I love erotica, so I put the two together, and that's it.
And I know, Nita, you sent me like a short script.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that like for you? I mean, was that your first?
That was my
erotica?
No, this first one anyone saw. The prose was very easy. Like, it just flowed, and it was a lot. The scripting became the problem for me. So that was difficult.
Well, and I want to bat that back to Rob when with Barbara, and Fetish Babies and that series. Was it difficult for you? Because I mean, quite honestly, when I first read that, I was just like, a guy wrote this?
I know, right?
Most difficult part was believing that I could write it. For too long, I was too worried about feeling like I couldn't get the female narrative right. And I kept asking, well, does it sound like a female? Because I was concerned. I had nailed it on the first try, and I was trying to reinvent it because I didn't realize how close I had gotten to the character and how natural it was for me to just talk through her voice and these words. And we had a perfect marriage, me and her, of this story. And I got in my own way of worrying about it. And honestly, the sensuality and the sexuality of that character and me, I don't struggle with it in the book. I think the thing that I was always worried about was the things she would say. Like, from a woman's point of view, how would this be worded? And every time I asked, I happened to be right. It's funny, sexually, I think I'm pretty in tune with understanding it. Not to say like I'm some sex guru. I just mean I ask the right questions. And because I ask the right questions, I get insight most men don't get. And I have male friends who have been asking me for the last couple of years, well, how do I bring up the conversation? I was like, you have a friend who writes a fetish book. Start there. Start literally there. Like, you know, and it's not difficult if you can imagine. Like, for me, all my characters live in my head. I have conversations with my characters.
Oh, yeah.
It helps me understand their motivations and who they are. And they grow on me and within my head. And I can sit there and talk to people about the most minute little things about the character. And they're like, you're going to tell that in a story? I'm like, no. I just needed to know. That's who she is. That's part of who she is. I know the movies she watches. Will that ever come up? Probably not. But I know the types of movies she watches. I know the comic books. There's even a reference where she talks about comic books. I know the comic books she's reading. And then that's just knowing your characters and really caring about them. I think the people who care about their characters, it always comes out in what they write. So if you care about your character, you're going to want them to get off. You're going to want them to enjoy sex. If you don't care about your character, you cut their head off.
There you go. Praying mantis right there. Nita, do you want to read this from Rick?
Has your writing of erotic novels grown like your sex life? Do you get better at writing erotic novels like your sex slave? You get better at having sex? Not sure I understand what he's going for there.
I think he's trying to ask, through experience of writing, does that pay off in the bedroom?
Oh.
And does the things you do, I mean, I wrote a fetish book and everyone loves it. Why? Because I'm actually in the fetish community. I've actually experienced that stuff, talked to people about it, done research about it. Yeah, I think it does. I mean, but here's the thing with sex, not everyone is adaptable. There are people whose kinks won't be my kinks. I've had relations with people that we just didn't in the bedroom mash up very well, and I believe that's important for your relationship, to be able to mash up well. And then some women have even trouble with their sexuality because there's some women who actually feel dirty. And I know that I was raised very Catholic, and I think that sometimes I'm dirty because I can hear that in my voice for the things I want to do. And I always just write it off. And I know because I've put that other layer in my head. As children, don't have sex. Don't do anything deviant. Don't you dare have sex outside of a marriage. Don't you dare, touch yourself. I'll be honest with everyone in this room, and you're all going to laugh at me, and I'm going to say it live. I actually didn't masturbate until after I had sex.
What?
That's right. I was able to orgasm without touching myself. I learned how to do that because I was told touching yourself is wrong. So I was able to get porn, about bondage, of course, and I was able to climax without ever touching myself. And
that's a trick, Rob.
That's a
damn.
Gift. Damn, dude. Multi-talented here.
I did that, and
I'm like, I gotta do Kegels or something.
I'll be honest with you. The first time
you don't have to touch yourself for Kegels, Meredith.
Yeah, I know, but still, damn.
The worst part about it is the first time I had sex, I was drunk. I had given up on the idea of love. I was in a very bad place emotionally, and this girl just had sex with me. And I was like, and it was the first time I wasn't really trying. Like every time before that, I was actively trying, but I wasn't like being forceful or anything. But this was the first time in my sexual life I was just natural with it, and I let things go the way they were going. I didn't stop and go, hey, do you think we could go further? Hey, is this the day where we're going to try to take it to the next level? Like I'm being Dawson from Dawson's Creek.
Right.
What do you think, Joey? Is today the day? Are we going to go out all the way? That's what you do when you're a teenage guy. Because the girl is the cop. The girl is the cop, the referee, the person who says if we get to go all the distance. You have to get that checkered flag and say you can go home. You know, she's like the batting coach. And that was the first time she took off my clothes, and there was suddenly this, and I was stoned too, if I remember correctly, not only high and stoned. And after it, she was like, you know, she asked me, how was it? It was not good. Nothing against her, but I've never been that way with sex. Well, a few other times when I was drunk, and it was always horrible. So I don't like drunk sex. But she asked me how it was, and I was like, I really don't have a comparison for you. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm a virgin. She's like, there's no way you're a virgin. I was like, no, seriously, I am. She's like, no, I don't believe you. I didn't realize till one of my friends was like, you tiger. She didn't believe you were a virgin. You must have done something right. I was put on the condom backwards because, like, you know, I had condoms, but, like, remember, I hadn't jerked off yet. So I've never touched it on my own, really, but to clean it. And then I suddenly realized, well, if I'm going to do this sex thing, maybe I can tying girls up and I still haven't jerked off. Like, it was really, really weird. Just imagine that. So then I remember, like, having a conversation with a girl about masturbating, and they're like, well, I think masturbating is cheating. And I'm like, no, it's tuning the instrument. It is tuning up the band, keeping it going.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Never give up. I told Meredith this. I'm okay dating myself. I haven't injured my hand. I'm just fine. But it's true. You have to know yourself. And I was raised to be so... Hey, relax. It was just my foot, guys. I was raised to be so trapped, and I had these ideas for bondage. I was so fucked up in my head as a kid. I wanted to tie up the neighborhood girls. And I was told not to have sex, and I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I was like the brain was melting out. And this is remember, when a man is 18, hormones don't describe it. Like, I didn't think for 3 years when there was a woman around. It was like, down, boy, down. What do you can't be doing that shit.
Oh yeah, no, my husband will tell you, like, all through high school, he basically carried all of his books in front of him.
Oh my God. I'm so glad we don't have that problem. Like, you could be sitting there and all you got to do is cross your legs and you're all right. That poor guys, man.
And I'm like the Incredible Hulk.
Y'all are like pointing shit out. It's like, and we could just be like, just smiling at you and you'll never know.
Well, women wears a sweater, that's it. We're ready. Like, men, like, but what women don't understand, it's the way you dress. When a woman has a sweater on, it's the way that it holds the curves, and that's something that's visual that men do have. So if men can take that visual aspect and explain it, think about what turns you on when you look at a woman. I've said it before. I have wanted to sleep with clothing, not the person, just the outfit. I wanted to take the outfit home. The outfit was amazing. I wanted to get married to the outfit. Like, when you get him out of the outfit, you're like, ooh, you put it back on? Could you get dressed again? I think we're better 5 minutes ago. I don't know. I mean, I could do it still, but it would be so much better if you got dressed again. And that's just, it kills the mood.
Oh my God.
It kills the mood somehow.
Oh my God. That was beautiful.
You know, and for me, speaking to Rick, I love doing research. I do get lost in research, and I often joke that I would probably be offended if I wasn't on some kind of a soft watch list because of my Google searches for a various amount of things. You know, whether it is sex, whether it is how to kill people, because those are the two things that I love writing. So but it's kind of funny because, you know, my husband and I think we are on different levels when it comes to that and communication and things, but we've known each other forever. I mean, I've known him since I was 15, right? I'm almost 50. And you know, so now it's almost like how can I make him blush? And that's like that just gets me going, you know. So if he knows that I'm writing something sexy or even something freaky or scary, I'm like, hey honey, you want to do some research? You know, and he's like, and his eyes just get really big and he's like, no, or maybe. So
never yes.
Rarely,
Yeah.
you know, we're on different time schedules as far as like work and stuff like that too. So it's one of those things, but it's fun though. We have fun with each other. That doesn't mean we never have fun with each other. You know what I mean? But Marvi, what about you? I mean, do you find that like if you've done the research, do you find that because of it as a student maybe that you've become better in the bedroom, or has it made your writing better because of your experiences? What do you think?
Uh, when I wrote the story, everything came naturally because I love horror, and that was the beginning of everything. So the erotica was just a compliment that I put in the story. So it's more horror than erotica, but it's got a little bit of both. And yes, the both things: the imagination, the movies, the writing, all the comics that I've read since I was a kid. So everything was mixed up out there, and I did the story.
And so this from Daphne Lage. The hardest part about writing that first erotic story is giving myself permission to actually get graphic, which is kind of weird considering
Right.
House of Bob,
Right.
right?
I think it's cute that Daphne has a shy, tame side.
I think that's very interesting. And she says, I'm still struggling with word usage, a very fine line between sexy and ridiculous.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Sometimes it just sounds so.
I have a friend of mine who as much as she loves reading romance and she's tried writing it, she says it always turns out into comedy. She's like, it's terrible. She's like, it's terrible. I could never pull this off. And I'm like, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't even know how to help you with that, you know? Uh, Trish says, I agree with you guys. I love 50 Shades, not because of the bedroom, but his messed up self-esteem and his therapy sessions. Let's see. And we are pretty much through because we've got some reactions here, but we are pretty much through the comments and the questions. Is there anybody else who has a question here about sexuality, maybe writing erotic? I don't think we really touched on comics though. Erotica and comics, or sexuality in comics.
Scripting sex in comics is difficult if you're going for erotica. If you're going for porn, it's simple because that's gonna, you just throw in some dirty words and the artist can fill it out. But erotica for me was very difficult when it came to scripting for a comic because I can only say so much per page.
Right.
And I had to lose so much of the prose that it was like, I'm killing my babies.
And you're hoping that the art carries that through.
Right.
Marv, what about you? How do you do that as far as the scripting or prose? And I mean, like, or if you start with prose and then you script it out into comics, how does that work for you?
I did everything. When I wrote The Witch, I was in the hospital. I had my second stroke, and I did the first draft, and after that, it came out naturally. I just wrote it, and I was just looking at the movie. I knew what I wanted, and I was watching a movie. Everything like the third person. So sorry, I am too. I'm very tired. 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh boy! We won't keep you very long. We're already a little past an hour.
My tongue is very
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I usually lose my vocabulary when I get really tired. Yeah. I think what's weird for me this past year, because I've been working on scripts now, and I have all of these story ideas running through my head. And lately, I feel like I'm dreaming in comic book panels.
Comics. I don't know if anybody.
I don't know if anybody else does that. It's weird because normally I'll dream and I have the Technicolor dreams and all that stuff, but lately it's almost like, because a lot of my stories come from my dreams or my nightmares or whatever, daydreams, whatever it might be. But lately I find that if there's a thing that pops into my head and it's the muse that's talking to me, a lot of times I will imagine that piece of dialogue in a word bubble with a panel. And
Yep.
is that strange?
No, when I write, I see panels.
Okay. All right. So it's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew,
When I
I'm
write,
And
I
almost
see panels.
relieved.
And I've only
The
done the
angle,
one script, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to mention that to you tonight later, Meredith. I think that's what screwed me up with the horror. Like, seriously, scripting. Because the second, when I went on to continue with the erotica, I couldn't write, I wasn't writing it out in prose anymore because I already had the way the women were communicating down. And so it just went straight to script. And that might be part of my problem. Why I can't get this story out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so I guess the next question would be, do you find that it might be easier to adapt prose to a script or the other way around? Because I'm finding with my book, there are a lot of short stories that I'm turning into scripts, and now that I'm getting art back with some of them, it's like it's not totally different, but it's almost like a tip of the hat to like a recognition of what the prose was. I wonder, is it more difficult going the other way around? Have you guys ever done that where you took maybe your
I
script?
have not, but I think that would be easier.
You think it would be easier?
Going from comics to prose?
Yeah.
Because I could fill in the blanks.
What about you, Marv?
I started writing the Sin Killer in prose, and for me, it was very hard because I wasn't visualizing anything.
There you go.
So I started to think about the panels. You know, page one, panel one, Stolstein shot. We are looking at the building from, you know. So from prose doesn't work for me. I got to see the panel in front of me, and I can see everything and describe everything that I see in that panel, so that I can move on from the next one. Prose for me is very difficult to work with. I have to see panels all the time.
Mm-hmm. Rob, what about you? Were you able to listen in on what we were talking about?
I've been here the whole time. The dogs are just barking and jumping on me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they love you.
Yeah. So honestly, it really depends on your artist and the comfort with your artist between the two. As far as how I dream about my characters all the time. I've thought usually I think about boxes and panels when I'm either doing a script or I'm lettering. That's when those dreams come in. But I dream of my characters all the time. I've had dreams of my characters warning me about things. So yeah, they're in my mind all the time. Scripting, I've written both prose and the comic book script. I think the only fun thing about prose is you don't have to be formal. Prose, you can just kind of blurt out exactly how you want to feel, where a comic book script, you have to stop, panel 1, row 2, blah, blah. And it's that kind of, that's why I always write all of my books in prose form. You know, recently we had to redo an entire story, so I had the opportunity to do it the Marvel way. We had all this art, and now I just put a story on top of it. It wasn't like I didn't understand the story, but I get to redo it now because we had to change so much of it. The original story didn't matter. So that script didn't become the end result. Barbara Unleashed, a lot of changes were made as we went. I mean, I used the change of an artist as a poignant way to show the different moods she was having, and I specifically chose artists to reflect that. So you get creative from things when you're working with the right artist. The wrong artists just unmotivate you. A lot of people don't realize there was supposed to be a different second artist for Barbara, and her art looked porn-like. I was very uncomfortable with it. At the time, I was trying to involve my ex as part of the relationship. We were going to do the comic together. She'd be my female correspondent. It did not work well. Obviously, we got divorced. And I regretted trying to involve her. And I'll tell this to every creator: don't try to bring your significant other onto a project with you just so you can feel closer. That's not the way. Learn to dance, get a hobby together, play board games. Don't ever try to get someone who isn't genuinely interested to be part of something. You know, it doesn't work. She wound up starting a business for me that failed because she thought that's what I wanted, and she wanted to distract me. So whatever could happen next. So it's messy. Don't interact that way. You know, always create on your own. Don't make other people come in and try to help you. Do it on your own. Fight for your characters. Fight for the way they'd say something. Stand up for them because they are part of you in no other way. I don't care if someone tells me to switch, and Meredith has seen this. Don't tell me how my characters would speak. You can talk to me into the finer points of like maybe that didn't sound right or that missed, but don't put where if I tell you those words would not come out of that character, you have to respect it. And you have to do that with your characters. You have to be so careful with your characters because an editor is going to fuck you up. They're going to tell you, well, this is how it should be said. No, fuck that. That's not how it would that character would talk. And with sexuality, especially, remember the moist versus wet thing. I hated the moist. I hated the idea of moist. If a girl told me she was moist, I would get my clothes back on and go home. I'm like, you're not Duncan Hines. I'm going to go home and have cake.
You know, honestly, I think moist is probably one of the most hated words there is on the planet.
It feels like there's fog in there. Oh, you're moist? There's fog? It's wearing fog going on?
I don't know why. I don't know why. There's and Nita and I, we were talking about this the other day. What are some of the words that drive people crazy? Moist is one. Nipple is another. What was the other one? I thought there was another one.
We just stuck to moist and nipples.
Yeah, it was just like it drives people crazy. And especially, you know, I have relatives who are like, don't say that around me. And I just can't help it, you know.
Look at my moist nipples.
And it drives people nuts. And it's like, okay. So I guess, do you, when you know that there are words like that bother a lot of people, do you find that you stay away from them, or do you use it for like shock value?
I don't do things for shock value. I think that's the wrong reason. Unless the character is doing it for shock value, I won't do it.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And usually that's because he's being a dick. Like one of the characters I'm writing right now, he says things to piss people off because he likes them rattled. Right. He likes to fuck with them, you know? And he'll do something for shock value. Like he'll use moist if he knows bothers one of his team members. If they screwed up, he'd be like, oh man, you really moistened that job, didn't you? Just to get under the skin.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's different when you're incorporating that into your character and their flaws and things like that, as opposed to maybe getting your readers and your potential consumers in kind of a gotcha moment. Rob, was there anything else that we wanted to touch on today? Because we are at an hour and 12 minutes so far. This kind of went by fast. Our conversation.
That was crazy.
Well, the one thing we didn't talk about with sexuality is the idea that women, especially in comics, because we're talking about comics, women get exploited a lot more than men do. Not to say there's not exploitation of men, but the problem with men is that when a man is shown, it's always this obscenely large, throbbing, like it's no longer a penis. It's a weapon object. And that has veins that, like, there's no accuracy. Like, I don't see a lot of artists actually, like, they're making like when you see the Hulk who's got like muscles where he just shouldn't have muscles because a human doesn't work that way. This is how like a lot of times penises are drawn. They look like cruise missiles with wires hanging out the outside of it. It is horrible. And like, the depiction of things, like it's almost on the level of juvenile. But you go to like what Marvie was saying, you go to in the European countries, and it's amazing how comfortable they are with it. How a man is drawn. That man shows his wing, and everyone lost their fucking mind. Batgirl gets raped and paralyzed. People are like, damn, that sucks. Batman shows his dick, and they're like, oh, his dick. Oh my God, you showed Batman's dick. And I'm like, dude, what's the bad? I mean,
Marvy,
like,
what were you
we
saying?
seen some dick. Did you see it was drawn like accurately? Like, that's how a dick would look. I mean, yeah, it's a dick. Like, is it really that powerful? I didn't realize how powerful dicks were until Batman showed his. Wasn't even hard. Wasn't using it. It was just his dick. And oh my God, that's a Batawang for weeks. That book was like $500. Straight men were paying $500 to see Batman's dick, and they didn't know why. I had all my friends like, have you seen Batman's dick? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, what? You know, and what? No. Tell me. No, I'm just, you saw it, right? So, like they want to know
like
thoughts, but they don't want to start the conversation
or something. Jeez,
they're turning red. I'm like, what? You want me to? You want me to compare myself? You're asking to see mine for comparison? Shit, man, look down if you still can. You fat fuck. Like I was teasing my friends. What, you can't look at it anymore? You need to go on a diet? I was teasing the shit out of my friends because they were so uncomfortable. I'm like, get a mirror, put it down there, look at it, you son of a bitch, But it's men. And that's what it is. We exploit women. A woman can go naked on a cover. No one bats an eye. People love it. A man goes naked in a comic book that's made for adults, and everyone loses their freaking mind. That says something about the American culture that we have made. And this is true. And this is one thing I have to say about the Me Too movement. I never realized I did. I put women on, or I did. I stopped doing this. I put women as pedestals. Stop treating them as objects. I stopped treating them as things I can conquer, as a sport or something like that. Because I realized I had been raised that way. Going back to Sam Malone, it is this idea that I am treating them as a prize instead of treating them as a fellow human being that I can connect with. Of course, not in a relationship. I've always treated them, at least in my point of view, the best I could during the time I was in, the period I was in. I've gone through some bad points in my life where I probably wasn't a great partner sometimes due to depression or anything like that, and not expressing myself. But as dating goes, even to this date, I see a hot girl and I start going, well, why would she like me? And I put her value above mine. And I have to remind myself, she's just a human being. I love TikTok because TikTok shows me how crazy women are. The dumb things that women do on TikTok remind me, okay, they're not that different than us. They're not really aliens. Because growing up, it felt like women were aliens. They were from a different planet. I kept getting told men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I'm like, then why are we on Earth?
Right. And when I was growing up, I was like, I want to be on. Can I be on Mars?
I gotta look up every day. Take me back. God. Oh man, like I don't understand. It's just a penis. Like people empower a penis. You can't show a penis on, but a vagina they'll show all day. Like it's
they'll show that. But and here's the funny thing, okay? I saw this in prose a couple of times where where it was where the whole fig leaf thing, covering the male genitalia, right? And it was like, now we're comparing how big the leaf is or how small the leaf is. It's like, come on, I mean,
I'm just saying, Meredith, I need like one of them Hawaiian tree leaves.
Oh my God.
Really, it's just to fan my ego, though. To actually cover it, I would just need like a leaf, like small little maple ones. That'd be fine.
But I mean, I wonder, Marvy, there you go.
This panel. This is from 1975 or 76. It's a young girl, and you see her breasts.
And that's nothing there. That's just normal and natural.
Yeah.
Like here, that's.
Yeah. We see everything differently here. This is natural for us. If we have to draw a woman early in the morning, changing her clothes, then showing her breasts, to put her bra, so it's natural. It's something that a lot of women do that every day. So we look at a way. It's normal.
America is afraid of sex. We've been taught to be afraid of our bodies. We've been taught to be ashamed. And this shows in a way a lot of writers write that are American.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their fault. It's how they were raised. Most religions in America teach you to treat sexuality as something bad.
And we really have. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was there.
We really have two sides to that too. We have those that were raised that it's like, it don't do it. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But then we have a very high abuse rate here too, where sex is fucked up on both sides, because you've got the kids that grew up sexually abused and freaking, then you've got the ones that grew up and it was the no, and it's really there's
that comes from a repressive culture,
right?
Where everyone is so wound tight that they just can't express themselves, and people just like if you're feeling stressed, honey, just go masturbate.
Right.
Better. Just go ahead, go whack it off. Come back in 10 minutes. We'll all be waiting.
Mm-hmm.
If you need 20, we got you. We can wait. Just relax, guys. We make things so hard nowadays. The simplest thing is to have sex, to find someone to be attracted to. If we leave ourselves open enough, it's not hard to find someone else. The problem we get is we let all that little shit get in our way. Oh, this, oh, that. I don't want to offend someone, and I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty as shit of it right now. Because I'm this guy who everyone describes as scary. And the beard I'm growing is not helping. This is not GQ shit. Now it looks like I have a white van outside, and I'm going to take you. And I got this giant. Thanks. Yeah, I'm kidnapping you. Yeah, that's it. You're done. I've walked outside with women, and they've ran to their car, and I'm like, what? What happened?
Wow.
Shit.
And probably the safest guy out there.
And it probably doesn't help. Yo, well, my van's over there. Probably the wrong thing to say. I got a free puppy.
But Daphne does say, America is terrified and obsessed with sex at the same time. And I think that's true. Because we are so repressed, and it's bad on so many levels, but everybody wants to do it, Oh, yeah. Or when it becomes so bad, it's almost like, don't touch that, but you can't help it. It's Pandora's box. You have to investigate. You have to peek in, and just see what the hell is going on there.
Oh yeah.
Do you have art class in history? Do you have some part of your history classes talk about art? Because in Portugal, at a young age, we start looking at naked men and naked women in history books.
We do.
You have that? So it's weird.
We do, but it's surprisingly censored, especially in the public education system. You're not going to learn about that until much higher grade levels, and usually you really get into art in college.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
it's not until college, and even then, I remember
it's limited.
It's very limited, and the people who wanted to sign up, it was like, oh, did you know that there's going to be naked girl as a
model? Grown ass men and women.
Yeah, it's just like, and they're all like, we're gonna go draw boobies. I was like, come on, really?
I draw boobies for fun.
I'm just saying that it's like, okay, they're going to take that art class just because they're going to see a naked dude or a naked girl. It's like,
right.
Okay, like,
go to the bar and bring one home, right?
Right. Just say, I want to draw you. I mean, like, I think that would be pretty sexy.
I got to try that one. I'll tell you how it goes, Meredith.
Be careful, Rob. You might get that Me Too hashtag.
Yeah. Oh, no. He said he was going to draw me, and then all of a sudden he's talked about rope. Crazy son of a bitch.
Oh, my God. Like, we could get away with that, Meredith.
Maybe.
Oh, a woman can. When a woman says, I can go out tonight and get laid, she's dead serious. When a guy says that, you're like, we'll see.
Buddy. See?
Mm-hmm. Now, Daphne also says, the weird thing is how it's all sex sells and TNA everywhere, but then turn around and tell creators, why do you need a sex scene? It's so unnecessary.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's, and then I wonder also.
Because America.
I also wonder too, and I know, Rob, you've had a lot of pushback because of Barbara. you know, and you're like, oh, he must be that creepy guy, you know. I mean, if you want to write that way or create a comic book that is an erotic or a really sexy book, TNA and stuff like that, does that pigeonhole you and kind of ruin you for anything else?
It doesn't ruin you, but you just got to be ready to fight back. I mean, I've literally been told that someone's going to call to have my child taken away because I have a banner that says free hugs and spanks. Meanwhile, if your child gets the joke, there's a bigger problem. The fact that your kid gets the joke is the problem, you know, but this is how powerful just this can be. And this is how repressed we are in America, that, oh my God, you're going to ruin children. No, if I wanted to ruin children, I'd let them watch Caillou. I'd let them watch SpongeBob.
Thank you.
That's how I would do it. Little cancer kid's creepy. I'm just saying it's true. Glad they canceled it. I hope he dies. I don't care. I'll own it.
I'm telling you, Barney the dinosaur freaked me the fuck out. So.
Yeah. Hey, don't knock Barney. Barney helped us sneak out and get laid a lot. You know, the music in the background. Hey, Mr. Knickerbocker, boppity bop. Yeah, and we were in the back, but we knew the kids were okay in front of the TV. So
dirty.
Creepy.
Barney.
Seriously, it's one of those things you just can't give a shit.
I'm getting turned on thinking about Barney. That's fucked up.
Because you've had so much sex to Barney music.
Woo!
There's something there. Therapy won't be able to cure it.
I've got a new kink.
You're going to see a Barney in a mall and be like, Barney. You're going to be calling up Steve. Hey, Steve,
I know what I'm putting in her next package.
What you doing right now, Steve? No, but seriously, it's one of those things where when you do it, you just got to own it. And you have to be afraid of it. When someone calls me a pervert, I'm like, oh, honey, you have no idea. Yeah. It goes so deep. The things I wish I could do. I've always said I was cheated by being made straight. The cutest guys flirt with me. The cutest guy, like even I'm straight. I take those quizzes and I'm straight as can be. But the guys who flirt on me, they're like Brad Pitt. Like the women who hit on me in public, not Angelina Jolie. The men are Brad fucking Pitt. Like I have the hottest guys, and I'm like, oh, why can't I be? You know, like you.
Right.
Like,
well, not only that, Rob. When you had Nipplegate going on, okay, it was the guys that were responding. Like, oh my God! I mean, I was going through the feed and I was laughing hysterically. It was like, oh, that was not what he was going for.
No, but it's funny because again, sexuality. I showed nip. I'm a fucking guy. I'm sorry. I know what a bench looks like at a gym, and I can lift things. You know, I don't even bench that much. Go to the gym, motherfuckers. You know, like what can I tell you? It's okay.
Mm-hmm. And Mike here says Barbara Unleashed was good because it showed things not as clear, good versus bad, but as a learning thing. Exactly.
Right. Right.
And it talked about an adult thing in a way that was relatable. People fell in love with the character. I have people who are like, you should do something else with Barbara. And I'm like, why? I mean, there is a crossover I want to do with Belial, with Chuck, but they're going to be in a dungeon. That's Barbara. That's part of who she is. Could I make a comic about Barbara not being into, not doing things with fetish? Of course I could. But she talked about still having a fetish. Like, you get those people who are like, oh, well, this is just a phase. I know that I have friends who like you can't date my daughter. And I don't know why guys do this to other guys. I've never heard of a woman looking at another woman to be like, you can't date my son. Never heard of it. But men do it all the time, at least maybe to me. And I have friends with teenage daughters, like 20-year-old daughters, and they go, you can't date my daughter. And I'm like, why? I'm a good guy. I advocate for thousands of people. Why? And they're like, what's your shirt say? And I'm like, oh. Well, what? Maybe she'll like it. It doesn't go well when you say that. For some reason, it makes the conversation worse when you say maybe they'll like it. Just saying. But no, you just own it. This is what I make. You don't like it, that's fine. But if you're going to review it, you have to read it. And everyone who's ever read it, people are shocked by the content. Like blown away what the story really is.
Right.
They expect, I guess, on page 1, like there was a penis slapping me in the face. You know, that's how they expect the story to open. And guess what? There's no sex in the book.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The entire 3-issue story, the first whole story arc has no sex whatsoever. Sexuality, yes. It does imply sexualness. It implies getting turned on. but there is no sex. There is more sex on covers right now on Indiegogo and Kickstarter than that were on that in that actual book. Nudity was used as this is what's going on, not a look at her boobs. Oh my God!
Right, and yet you were the deviant.
Oh, I am. I own it though. I'm fine with being a deviant. That's the thing. I don't run and hide from it. Most of the people pointing at me, they're usually the most repressed people in the room. They're the ones struggling with their sexuality. I mean, how many times have we seen the congressman being against gay people? Turns out that he sucks, you know.
Right.
He likes it. He gargles with it, you know. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah.
That he does snowballing. So I mean, but he's in the Congress trying to get the rights taken away. It's how we deal with things. We hide who we really are. I know for a fact that there are a lot of people that are in the actual creative community that are into the fetish stuff too, and talk to me that you guys would never know, but we talk about it all the time. And I'd never out anyone, but it just goes to show you, because they won't come out publicly and defend anything, because they can't. They can't take that risk because they see how hard I get hit. Yeah. And I'm not a masochist. I'm actually a sadist. No. Yes. I always get those two confused. Yeah, I'm a sadist. Yeah.
Masochists like the pain.
Yeah. So I am a sadist. I don't like pain. Actually, pain makes me angry. Probably why I keep them back when they say something dumb about my books. You can say anything you want about me, but you pick on Barbara, I'll fuck you up. Don't talk about my woman that way. The only bitches I have are the dogs at home, and they are just female dogs. I can't help it. It's what they are. It's accurate. They're bitches.
It's true.
And the grown men complaining about Batman having a penis. Like, you didn't know he had a penis. Why do you think Catwoman kept coming back?
Oh my God.
And on that note, do we have anything else, Rob?
I could keep going, but I'm going to let Marvy go because he's been a champ. He's 3 a.m. over by him. He's tired. Let's wrap it up. Let everyone go out and enjoy their ways. Let's say our goodbyes.
Who wants to go first?
Let Marv go. He needs to go to bed.
Yeah, he needs to go to bed.
Just a little bit. I can stay. Go ahead. I'll be last.
He's going to be with the tape on his eyes. It's like, I'm here. I'm paying attention. Really.
I'm having fun, so I'm okay.
Yeah. So Marvy, tell us a little bit more about the Sin Killer, because you are powering through a lot of your work and stuff. Tell us when we can expect to see the Sin Killer and what kind of progress you've got going on with it.
Well, right now I'm going to publish the smile on my face with Arrow Comics 4.0, an anthology called Indie Volt Revolt, and I hope to finish the comic between end of February and March. So I hope to make a campaign in April. So let's see. I'm redoing everything because I had the Sin Killer was doing traditionally. Now I have the tablet and I'm inking digitally. I'm putting everything like I would like to do. I want to put everything 100% how I want it. So let's hope to have a campaign in April.
Excellent.
Let's see. Yeah, thanks. I'm hoping. Let's hope.
All right. Let's put Nita up here. Nita, what are you working on?
I am currently working on a horror story, actually, but and have an erotic comic coming up in the future, and apparently I'm still trying to absorb the fact that I have a Barney fetish or something. So, like I'm trying to take that in. You can find me on Facebook. That's it. That's what I got.
All right. I guess I'll pop myself up here. So we've got Terraform the Continuum happening on Kickstarter very, very soon. Make sure that you head over to Kickstarter, do search for Terraform Comics and you will see the continuum. Make sure you smash that notify me on launch button so that you know exactly when we're going live with that. Nita and I are going to be doing something super
I knew I forgot something.
special.
Oh.
We're doing something super special with that. We are doing Reapers for Reapers, and it's going to be crazy. And one of us might actually die. So won't that be fun? Whee!
So exciting.
Rob.
They never know who I am. They all send
You always say
emails.
that.
If you want to know more about me, check this out. Meredith didn't say it. I'm amazed she didn't say it. She didn't talk about her link tree.
Yeah. I
or
did.
tree link, whatever it is. But I got one better. So now Rob's got chain links wait for it, .site. That's right. Chainlinks.site. That's an S for plural links. Will take you right to my site with all of my links. I don't need anyone's trees. I got my own chain because I'm off the chain.
Oh my gosh.
That's so sexy, Rob.
No, ego
so
here.
sexy. You go your own way.
Listen, after Nipplegate, I'm feeling good. Feeling good about myself.
Oh my god.
A lot of
Rob,
guys out there like what they see.
I was going to say, do we have an outro?
For this one, let me see real quick. I think when we were ending this show, I just played the beginning, to be honest with you, of this, and I just let it play with the music and then hit it quick.
So now, anybody who's tuning in, Freaky Friday is the first Friday of the month, so we will see you on March. Let me look at my calendar here. March what? March 5th is the first Friday. And we will see you then for another Freaky Friday. And before then, we will make sure that we announce what the topic is going to be and if we've got any special guests.
Good night, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
Barney,
love you.
We love you, Barney.
Word
in ways
up.
you don't even understand.
And he loves you.